So this one is exercise 2 metals as we were discussing the last question 23 we discussed. So 24 onwards. Question 24 is about the extraction of aluminium. You can see when we extract the aluminium, we use electrolysis for the extraction of aluminium. Aluminium is extracted by electrolysis of the molten mixture of alumina. What is alumina? It's a pure aluminium oxide is called alumina, which is aluminum oxide, and cryolite is there. So these are the waste gases such as oxygen and carbon dioxide. We have the anode and the cathode, both are made up of carbon or graphite, and the mixture of cryolite is there. Alumina is obtained from a main ore of aluminium. Name this ore. So what is the main ore of aluminium? What we call? So we call bauxite. So the main ore of aluminium is the bauxite. Explain why it is necessary to use a mixture alumina and cryolite rather than just alumina. So basically, what's the reason of using a cryolite? Why we use a cryolite? The first reason is to lower the melting point, because when the melting point is lower, we can operate this at a low temperature. As I mentioned, if it was a pure aluminum oxide, the temperature should be around 1900. But as it's mixed with a cryolite, as a result, what will happen? That it will lower the temperature. And the second thing is cryolite is used as a solvent. So when we say it is used as a solvent, so like it dissolve most of aluminum oxide and break down into ions easily. That's another advantage. And it also concentrate the ore and give out greater amount of aluminum. So lower melting point and a cryolite is used as a solvent to dissolve alumina. These are the 2 points you will mention. Copper can be extracted by electrolysis of aqueous solution. Suggests why the electrolysis of aqueous solution cannot be used to extract aluminium. Like they're saying, we can use aqueous copper solutions, like the copper solutions can be used, like how we do for extraction of a copper. We take electrodes. One is made up of impure copper. Another one is made up of pure copper. One is connected with a positive terminal, another one connected with a negative. Dot is representing the presence of the impurity, and we have aqueous copper salt. So there's a copper ion, there's a sulfate ion, there is a hydrogen ion and hydroxide ion. So what will happen? The copper ions are attracted, so they will discharge at cathode. Why copper is moving here? Because copper is less reactive than hydrogen. And to balance that, the copper atom will go inside the solution as a copper ion. They're saying why we cannot use the same for aluminium. Like example, if we have a piece of aluminium, we take anode and cathode. If I take one as impure aluminium and the other one I took as a pure aluminium, it should be thinner because the second one we took a pure, and we take aluminium nitrate. So aluminium ion is there, nitrate ion is there, hydrogen ion, aqueous aluminium nitrate. The question is why this cannot be used to extract aluminium, because what will happen in this case, the hydrogen is less reactive, so hydrogen will move towards cathode, or hydrogen ion, like the aqueous solution contain both aluminium and hydrogen ions in aqueous solution, and hydrogen ions are less reactive, so they will discharge at cathode instead of aluminium, or they will be reduced instead of aluminium. That's why we cannot use aqueous solution. It must be a molten solution. So answer here, you will mention aqueous solution. So aqueous solution of aluminium, it contains both hydrogen and contain both hydrogen ions and aluminum ions, both. Then what will happen? Aluminum is more reactive, so or hydrogen is less reactive, will discharge at cathode instead of aluminum. That's why we have to use molten, we cannot use an aqueous solution. The next is ions which are involved in the electrolysis of aluminum are aluminum +3 and oxygen -2. The products of the electrolysis are given on the diagram. Explain how they are formed, use equation where appropriate, and 4 marks are there. So the products are given. We have to use I will write the answer there for this part B. So the products are given. First, this aluminum at cathode. So how aluminum we get at cathode? So aluminum ions are there from the electrolyte. They will take electron and they will form aluminum atom. So aluminum from how you'll write this, you'll mention aluminum ions from the electrolyte attracted towards the cathode, gain electron and reduce to aluminum metal. Then how oxygen is formed? So oxide ion from the electrolyte loses electron or oxidation is happen for them and will form oxygen gas. And then because of a high temperature, as the furnace is having a high temperature, so because of the high temperature, the carbon or the graphite at anodes will react with oxygen and as a result, it will give carbon dioxide. So how the marks are distributed, 1 mark when you're writing an equation for formation of aluminum and explaining how it is formed. So explanation is aluminum ion gain electron, aluminum ions from electrolyte gain electron and turn into aluminum metal. How you will get how oxygen is formed, the oxide ions from the electrolyte move towards the anode. This is what is formed at anode and form oxygen gas. Then because of a high temperature, the oxygen gas which is formed here will react with the carbon, the graphite, and it will form carbon dioxide. So we have to replace the anode time to time because the amount of the carbon decreases. So we need a greater amount of, like we have to replace this regularly anodes. In part C, the use of a metal are determined by its properties. The food which are acidic can be supplied in aluminum container. You have seen like different restaurants, they are providing a food in aluminum foils. Means aluminum container, not the foil. Foil is there just to keep it warm. So the food is acidic, aluminum container. Why the acid in the food does not react with aluminum? So what is the reason for that? Even though aluminum is more reactive, but why the acid does not react? Because oxide layer. So aluminum is having a protective oxide layer. Which prevent the reaction between aluminum and acid. Core of the it's of 3 marks. Explain why core of the overhead cables like high tension wires you have seen for transmitting electrical power or electrical energy from the power stations to the consumers. High tension wires are used. So why the overhead cable, electrical cable, power cables are made up of aluminum with a steel core? Like why the center is a steel and the surrounding is aluminum? Aluminum is actually, so what is the purpose? First thing, the property aluminum is have because it's a high tension wire and it is at a certain altitude, so it has to be lifted. So aluminum is having a low density and good conductor. So advantage of having low density and a good conductor we can use for overhead electrical cables. So overhead electrical, like we can easily lift it. Low density is there. and good conductor, so it can easily transfer electricity. But why there is a steel core? So to increase the strength, so steel is a strong material. Advantage of having a strong material, this will strengthen the aluminum cables. Okay. So because otherwise, like aircraft bodies also consist of aluminum, but that is not a pure aluminum. That's an alloy. Here we have a pure aluminum. So how to strengthen this aluminum? So we use a center of the aluminum, a steel core is there. What is the purpose? So around that steel core, if aluminum wires are there, they will remain strengthened. Like it will provide a strength to that. Otherwise, what might happen that it may easily, because it has a low density, so it will experience, it will have a smaller weight, so it will experience greater force, which can uh, tear or a breakdown. So to strengthen that, steel cores are used. Otherwise, we can use a alloy of aluminum as a cable as well. Then we don't need a steel core there. Question 25, the following metals are in order of reactivity: potassium, zinc, and copper. For those metals which react with steam or water or steam, name the product, and otherwise write no reaction. Potassium, will it react with steam? Is there a reaction? Yes or no? So yes, there will be a reaction. And what are the products whenever we react with steam or a water? Like example, if a potassium, we have to write the equation, name the products of this reaction, not the equation. So what are the products for this reaction? When metal is reacting with water or steam, like sodium, potassium, and calcium, they will form metal hydroxide, like alkaline solution plus hydrogen. So this will give potassium hydroxide plus hydrogen. These are the products. But same thing, we have, uh, because still iron, they can react with cold water. So we have, if you check the reactivity, we have potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium, zinc, iron, lead, copper, mercury, silver, gold, platinum. So till here, they can react with both water and steam. But the potassium, sodium, and calcium, they can react with cold water. But here they can only react with steam. And when they react, they will form a metal oxide. So when with the zinc, there will be a reaction happen or a reaction occur. And what will the product? This will form zinc oxide, because magnesium, aluminum, zinc, iron, they form metal oxide plus hydrogen. So this will form a zinc oxide plus hydrogen. And with copper, as you can see, it does not react with steam nor with cold water or steam, so there will be no reaction. Okay. Then this question is about the extraction of iron from the blast furnace. You can see ore of iron, which is hematite. In the blast furnace, we have the raw materials, coke, iron, three oxide is there, which is the hematite, and calcium carbonate, the limestone. The coke react with oxygen in air to form carbon dioxide. Explain why carbon monoxide is form higher in the blast furnace. Like this is a place where carbon dioxide is formed, and this is a place where carbon monoxide is formed. Why carbon monoxide is formed at higher? Look, what is the form? How the formation of a carbon monoxide occur? Carbon monoxide occur when you have a limited supply of oxygen. So from the bottom of the furnace, we are providing oxygen. So when we are bottom of the furnace, we are providing oxygen. So at the bottom of the furnace, we'll have plenty of oxygen. But at the top of the furnace, we have a limited supply of oxygen. Like, because as what will happen that when we blow the oxygen from the bottom, The oxygen from the bottom will react with carbon and it will give carbon dioxide. And the remaining, like some of the oxygen does not react with carbon, so they will rise. So when we compare the percentage of oxygen in the furnace at the top or at the bottom, we'll find that oxygen percentage is high at the in the bottom because air is supplied from the bottom, and percentage of oxygen is less at the top. So why the carbon monoxide is formed at a higher in the blast furnace? We'll mention um, the air added to the furnace from the bottom. So what is the effect of this when we add air from the bottom? So higher percentage of oxygen at the bottom, and it has a lower percentage at the top. So limited supply of oxygen produce carbon monoxide, CO. Okay. So that's how the formation of a carbon monoxide happen or occur. Write an equation for reduction of hematite. Whenever this ask equation, it means you have to write a symbolic equation and it must be balanced. If they don't say anything like ionic word, so that means it's a symbolic equation. So we have iron 3 oxide is there, and this iron 3 oxide we react with carbon monoxide. It will form iron and plus carbon dioxide. I remember the balance equation, that's why I'm writing directly, but you can first complete a product and then balance. But it's for some of the reactions, especially about the metals, it's better you learned all these equations because it won't change. Limestone decomposes to form two products. One of is calcium oxide. Name the other product. Limestone is calcium carbonate. If I decompose calcium carbonate, one of the product is calcium oxide. What else will be the product? So the other product will be carbon dioxide. They ask name the other product, so you are supposed to write the name. Don't write CO2. Why? Because they asked the name. They did not ask for formula. Sometime, even though you know the answer, you may lose a mark by not reading the question properly. So if they ask name the other product, you're supposed to write a name. So here you have to write carbon dioxide. Don't write a formula. If they ask write a formula of the other product, then you will write CO2. Calcium oxide react with silicon 4 oxide, which an acidic impurity in the iron ore, to form a slag. Right equation. So we have calcium oxide is there, reacted with silicon 4 oxide to form CaSiO3, which we call slag. Explain why the molten iron and the molten slag form two layers, why the molten iron is in the lower layer. So why they form two layers? Because the molten iron and slag have different densities. And why the molten iron is at the bottom? What did this give an idea about the density? It means that molten iron has high density than compared to slag. Or you can say other way around, you can say slag is having a low density. That's why it is at the top. So molten iron will be there at the bottom. Suggest why molten iron does not react with air. Why the molten iron does not react with air? If you see this, you can get the answer. Why the molten iron is not reacting with air? What is there at the top of the molten iron? The top of the molten iron is slag. So slag is actually providing a preventing molten iron from react because the air and molten iron are separated by slag. So slag on the top of iron, preventing it from reaction. Because iron can react with oxygen, but why it's not reacting? Because the slag is preventing it from reacting. It will again form iron oxide. So why the molten iron does not react with the iron? Because the slag prevent interaction of molten iron and air. In part C, iron and steel rust. Iron oxide. Iron is oxidized to hydrated iron 3 oxide Fe2.2O3.2H2O, which is a rust. Name the two substances which cause iron to rust. What are the two substances cause iron rusting of an iron? Water and oxygen. So as they again ask name, so you have to write the name. Don't write a formula. Explain why aluminum articles means things which are made up of aluminum. Aluminum article coated with aluminum oxide is protected from further corrosion, but a steel article coated with a rust continue to erode. That's a very good question. Like for example, the same idea. Say you have a piece of aluminum. So this is a piece of aluminum, and you have a piece of iron. Okay, both have oxide. Like aluminum oxide, the top layer is aluminum oxide. But for this one, when rusting of iron occur, the top layer is iron oxide. So they're saying why when iron oxide is formed, like rusting happen, the substance is still it is not preventing from reaction, but aluminum, because the idea is that when aluminum oxide is formed, aluminum oxide is not a porous substance. Porous means like some places there are spaces available. But when iron oxide turn into like when there's a layer of a rust on the piece of iron, it's not like the whole layer get rust. And this is a porous substance. When we say a porous substance, what will happen? Like it allow the oxygen and the moisture to interact. So when we say the substance is a porous, so the rust is